Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain! Aye, aye, Captain!
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
SJ369? Huh. Yeah, now when you think about it, that really doesn't work. If you're expecting Candy Cadet to be here, sorry to say, he's actually a bit ruined right now. Something about an old pizzeria underground, I don't know. But anyway, originally, I asked him to tell the story of 5 Nights at the Krusty Krab, and what did he do? He just goes ahead and shows all the phone calls. Honestly, where do you get that idea from? Oh. Well, to catch you up to speed, yes, I recently posted a video showing all the phone calls of the 5 Nights at Krusty Krab trilogy. Now this is a fan game of 5 Nights at Freddy's, but instead of the animatronics being a fuzzy bear and a pirate fox, you have animatronics like Spongebob and Patrick and Sandy, and well, you get the idea. But the game was created by Dakota Wood back in January of 2015. Wow, that takes me back. And the third game being released in May of 2022. So, why am I here? Well, I want to explain the hidden story within these games. So, no, I'm not here to talk about Pop Goes. I've already done a theory video on that game. And wow, what a shameless plug that was. Hey, links in the description. Seriously though, I please strongly recommend watching my phone call video on this trilogy beforehand, otherwise this video might come off as very, very confusing. Now, before we start, a major resource I'm going to use is Noob Dude's interview with Dakota Wood. So just so you know, he doesn't exactly reveal everything about the story, and so this video is not going to be a short summary of the interview, nor am I going to go through all 17 nights across all 3 games. Both of those ideas would just be boring and pointless. So instead, this is going to be a theory video, because after going through each game and each phone call with a fine-tooth comb, let me tell you, this theory will definitely be on Spongebob levels of crazy. And that is crazy. And I also want to make note that Dakota said this in his interview.
The first 2 games I kind of made without intent that there being a story, and then as it kind of goes with 5 Nights at Freddy's, people kind of decided that there was a story, and so when I was kind of figuring out how to end the story with the 3rd game, I kind of had to retroactively go back and sort of subtly change kind of the perception of the story from the first 2 games.
Hey look, that's fair, given that the 2nd and 3rd games in the trilogy were a good 7 years apart. So probably most of the phone calls from the first 2 games aren't actually canon, but for the sake of the video, I'm just going to treat them all as canon as possible. So, with that all being said, let's make like a bikini and get to the bottom of these 3 games. Oh man, you wonder why I don't make many of these theory videos. Anyway, cue the intro. And will somebody please get me out of these pants? Now before we get into the main theory of this video, I wanted to start by answering a big question. Does the game take place in Bikini Bottom? I had a comment on my phone call video saying this, quote, I'd like to imagine that 5 Nights at the Krusty Krab takes place in a world where cartoons and humans coexist. This explains why the phone guy mentions he was hired by the Mr. Krabs himself.
As you already know, I'm the manager here, appointed by Mr. Krabs himself, to be honest. And I've selected you as the night watchman here.
and why the first game's Night 6 phone call says stuff like the Krabby Patty's secret formula, and the place being overrun by plankton.
This restaurant has likely been abandoned under the Krusty Krab Operating Handbook, Section 19, Paragraph 87. The establishment has likely been overrun by a threat that is attempting to breach the safe and obtain the Krabby Patty's secret formula, most likely under Plankton's direction.
Now, this was a question even I had whilst playing the games, and I was worried this was the case, because the phone call video ended up going on the assumption that Spongebob is nothing more than a TV show in the game's universe.
One restaurant was named the Krusty Krab and the other the Chum Bucket. Their designs would be based off of the popular television show, as were the animatronic characters.
So, a lot was riding on the fact I was right. But at the time there was a couple of reasons for my decision. The main one being that Nickelodeon is a real company in the game, as explained by the ending cutscene of Krusty Krab Chapter 3.
Man, does that sound like the start of a B-grade horror flick? Doesn't make it much better that I was in a Nickelodeon-themed restaurant. Honestly, I'd have made more money if I took the ad and wrote the movie it was begging me to write.
And if Nickelodeon is real, then it would make sense they would be the ones behind the making of the two SpongeBob-themed restaurants, that being the Krusty Krab and the Chum Bucket. But then, what about Mr. Krabs and Plankton, you may ask? Funny enough, there's actually a person in the game's world whose name might ring a bell.
Apparently the whole thing was caused by this one guy with ties to TBS. I think he and Eugene from Viacom have been feuding privately over some dirty investments, and you and I got caught in the middle.
And what's Mr. Krabs' full name in the SpongeBob show? Eugene Krabs. Now, I know this sounds crazy, but stay with me because I have even more proof. Not from the games, but from Dakota Wood.
In the lore of the Krusty Krab games, there is it doesn't take place in Bikini Bottom. Like, it's not part of the continuity of the cartoon, but there are parallels for characters like Mr. Krabs and Plankton in the story.
So there you go, straight from the creator himself, that cartoon characters do not coexist within the world of these games. Just animatronics of said cartoon characters and people with similar names. However, there was another comment I had debating whether this was the intention of the games all along. Quote, I guess it could be a retcon, like the games were originally meant to be in SpongeBob's world but was later changed to be in the real world. End quote. And I believe this to be true, as I showed in the intro, Dakota didn't really have much of a story planned out at the beginning, plus some of the phone calls in the first game still lean heavily that cartoon characters exist in the world. For example, one of the phone calls points out how there was a Krusty Krab 1 and 2.
Welcome to the new Krusty Krab. You may be familiar with some of the older restaurants in the chain, notably the original store as well as the Krusty Krab 2.
And this is a direct reference to the SpongeBob movie, and in that movie, humans and cartoon characters coexist. None of that in my video, please. Get out. Eesh. And on that note, let's move on to the main topic. Alright, so now that we have clarified this whole story is taking place in the real world and that cartoon characters do not exist, I will now reveal what the true goal of this video is. And that is to identify who is the true villain of the game. And let me tell you now, there is more than just one. But the first step of deciding who's bad and who's good is to list off every character we know of and what their roles are. So I decided to make a bit of a hierarchy. First of all, I just want you to hear this part of the final cutscene of the last game again.
I wasn't even there a day before I realized things were off. Apparently the whole thing was caused by this one guy with ties to TBS. I think he and Eugene from Viacom have been feuding privately over some dirty investments, and you and I got caught in the middle.
So, at the very top, we have some American TV companies, TBS and Viacom, which, since I'm Australian, I'm not overly familiar with, unfortunately. But I did manage to find a real-life news clipping that mentioned back in 2021, Viacom bought out the exclusive cable rights to Seinfeld, the popular sitcom that TBS had the previous cable rights to, for a good 19 years. So, I'm not sure of these so-called dirty investments Eli talks about, or some scheme to earn the TV rights to Spongebob or something. If that's the case, then, man, Spongebob be making TV companies that money!
Hello, I like money.
Thank you, Mr. Krabs. Anyway, so, ironically enough, I'm not sure what part Nickelodeon actually plays in all this, but given it's their characters being used to wreak havoc throughout the games, I'll just put them with the TV companies for now. Okay, so we have two managers from Viacom, one of them being Eugene, codename is Mr. Krabs. They organised Nickelodeon to make a restaurant chain around the SpongeBob characters. This turns out to be possibly all a scheme to make lots of money, so to obtain all the cable rights to SpongeBob from TBS. Yeah, not exactly where I thought this story was going to be heading. Honestly, who writes this stuff? Now, Dakota, if you're listening, I didn't mean anything bad. You're a cool guy, thanks. Alright, now next we have to introduce Plankton, and Dakota gives a good introduction to the character in his interview.
And the guy with the really bad, like, southern accent, he is supposed to be the engineer that built the robots for the Krusty Krab, alongside some of the other characters.
Would that be Plankton, by any chance?
His name is not Plankton, his name is Sheldon.
Yeah, bet you didn't know that. But then again, if Plankton can build a computer wife, then I'm sure this version of Plankton, or Sheldon, as I'm going to refer to him from now on, would be more than capable of building animatronics. Now, I wonder if he built himself a wife as well. Didn't say anything. Now, you might be wondering why Plankton isn't here in the hierarchy I've made, on the same level as Eugene Krabs. Well, that's because he clearly says in the phone calls of the second game, he has a boss.
Why, hello there. You must be the old security guard. I've been told so much about you from my superior. Allow me to introduce myself. For all intensive purposes, I am the second in command here at the Chum Bucket, and my boss has put me in charge of you.
There you go, crystal clear. Literally says it 3 times in the first 30 seconds of the phone call. So hence the one guy that has ties to TBS is Plankton's superior / boss. And then you have Mr. Krabs, or Eugene, being the boss of the phone guy from the first game, and then we have you, Eli Floyd, at the very bottom. There you go. Pretty simple, right? What do you mean, no? Well, it still makes more sense than Five Nights at Freddy's. I mean, when you think about it, nothing is more confusing than Five Nights at Freddy's. Whatever. So we've got 5 potential criminals. It's time to put them all under trial and see who's innocent and who's going to be put behind bars. Court is now in session. So let's start with Eli Floyd. He's the character you play as in each and every one of these games, and he's also the one who does the final video / journal entry at the end of Five Nights at the Krusty Krab Chapter 3. Simply put, he is by far the most innocent of all the characters in the game. The only motive he had for accepting this job was to pay the rent.
I was broke, living in LA, and I accepted a job which paid just to make rent.
But, unfortunately, he ends up being kidnapped.
At the end of the first game, the building is burnt down by the animatronics because they've kind of been taken over. And the only 2 people who kind of know what happened there were you and your manager, the phone guy. And so the engineer, the kind of guy, the guy with the southern accent, he kidnaps you and uses you to kind of try and trap in your manager, uses you as bait, so that he can kill both of you at the same time.
Ooh, big shock here. Sheldon's the bad guy. Ooh. and in this game he's a total nutjob with a very bad southern accent. And if Sheldon is bad, then that means so is his boss, or superior.
You and your buddy on the phone there have caused us quite a lot of trouble by escaping that fire. We can't have anyone finding out what happened at the old restaurant. That's where you come in. No doubt your friend out there is gonna come and find you. So, we're keeping you alive until that happens.
But given Sheldon uses the words us and we, it sounds as if him and his boss are behind everything. The animatronics turning evil, the fires, the kidnapping of you, the murder of the original phone guy, who's then turned into an animatronic after the second game.
I'm sad that I never got to meet you in person. Not under good circumstances, at least. As much as I would like to stop this, my mind and body are no longer my own. They belong to him now.
So I'm led to believe the him is Sheldon. As I said, he's an absolute psychopath in this game. I'd hate to know what dark alley his manager found him in. But even with all these accusations against them, there was someone else who was at the very root of all that has occurred in this story. The one that set the wheels in motion. The one whose greed got so out of control, he decided to take everything for himself.
Someone here masterminded a scheme even more awful. And that person is there!
But this is crazy! I didn't do it! Ahoy! This is Eugene Krabs! Leave a message!
Oh, hi Mr. Krabs, this is Clay from TBS. Just want to thank you again for letting us know about Sheldon and his boss. We've gone ahead and made you the exclusive owner of the Spongebob show and the 2 restaurants. If both are still standing, that is. Once again, thanks for the business. Enjoy your new ownership. Goodbye.
Well, it was... don't you just hate wrong numbers?
And he would have gotten away with it too. If it wasn't for this one line in 5 minutes of the chum bucket.
Oh, and one last thing. My boss gave me a memo for you. It reads, Krabs is a backstabbing traitor.
But what exactly did Eugene do? Well, I believe I actually have enough evidence from the first game. Yes, the first game. Ironically, the one that originally had no intention of a story, to tell you exactly what his plot was. So the first part of Eugene's plan was to have you and the phone guy be the only human employees working the restaurant, and the rest be animatronics.
That means it's your job to watch over the place as well as the other employees for me. Oh yeah, I should probably let you know, instead of hiring a brand new crew, Mr. Krabs simply staffed the kitchen here with animatronic replicas of his old employees and neighbors. Krabs isn't known to be the most trusting person, especially with his money and secret recipe, so I guess it does make a bit of sense.
But that doesn't make any sense. If Krabs isn't the most trusting person with his money and recipe, why would he hire a human to watch over the safe and not a robot? Surely that is not a coincidence. Well, in actual fact it's not. Remember when I said Sheldon was a psychopath? Yeah, well, Eugene actually counted on this to be true. Listen to the phone call on night 6 again, and I want you to focus on the fact that this message was pre-recorded.
Recording safety message 24. Take 3, action. If you're hearing this, then you're in grave danger. This restaurant has likely been abandoned under the Krusty Krab Operating Handbook, Section 19, Paragraph 87. The The establishment has likely been overrun by a threat that is attempting to breach the safe and obtain the Krabby Patty's secret formula, most likely under Plankton's direction. At the next possible occasion, leave the restaurant and never return.
Now look, if Sheldon was the one who built the animatronics for the restaurant, then why would Eugene order the phone guy to pre-record this message? Well, it's simple. Because it was all in Eugene's plan for Sheldon's greed to take over and try to break into the safe using his animatronics. And this is the true reason why you were hired, so you could stop the animatronics, which are taken over by Sheldon, from breaking into the safe. Then, all Eugene had to do when the time came was use the camera footage to discredit Sheldon and his manager, and then he'd be left with everything on his own, the 2 restaurants, the TV rights, literally everything. But, fortunately, this didn't work at all.
At the end of the first game, the building is burnt down by the animatronics because they've kind of been taken over.
Now, you may be wondering, but why would Sheldon want to burn the place down? Wasn't he just after the money in the safe? Well, again, I refer back to the line in Five Nights at the Chum Bucket.
My boss gave me a memo for you. It reads, Krabs is a backstabbing traitor.
This implies that Sheldon's manager knew of Eugene's plan at one point, and the only way to stop Eugene from betraying him was to destroy all the evidence, the camera footage, the animatronics, and yes, even the restaurant in its entirety. All that was left to do after that was to get rid of the only 2 witnesses, being you and the phone guy, which they succeed in doing so on night 6 of the Chum Bucket.
Hello? I can see you through the glass. The doors, they're stuck fast. I can't get it open. Could you try from your side?
Or so we thought! So yeah, instead of the story ending right there and then, Dakota decided to do a Jesus and resurrect someone from the dead. And that someone was Eli.
Okay, so that cutscene is very problematic now because the story has kind of changed a little bit over the years. Originally, what that cutscene was supposed to convey was the player character dying and it being the end of the series, because I didn't really want to make another one at the time. And in the kind of revised ending, instead of Squidward killing you, you are instead handed over to Hammerhead and taken to this nuclear power station to kind of, you know, settle things once and for all, right?
Whoa, hold on. So you're telling me that the guy on the inside of the restaurant with all the killer animatronics survives, and the guy who was outside the restaurant dies? And that's not my only problem with this cutscene. If this is meant to be showing Squidward grabbing you and handing you over to Hammerhead, that can't happen either, as the phone guy is clearly still alive. He's standing right there, for Pete's sake. Honestly, if you wanted a third game in this series, you should have had Eli be the one stuffed into Hammerhead, and then you play as the phone guy in the third game. Sheldon could have easily attacked him from outside the restaurant and kidnapped him. I mean, he clearly is still around, as only a psycho would have created the animatronic scene in the third game. I mean, just look at this monstrosity. Nightmare fuel. Okay, I'll calm down. But hey, credit where credit is due. The last game in the series is by far the best gameplay-wise, so I will forgive this major inconsistency. Unfortunately, we don't actually get too much lore from here on. The old videotapes more or less just explain how the nuclear power station works and the game's mechanics. I mean, sure, I guess there are times where the videotapes glitch out,
While previously you were not required to engage unless a suitably catastrophic failure or anomaly occurred, a recent Class E event in which had caused severe damage to the cables supplying the reactor's coolant pump with power.
But I couldn't really connect these occurrences to anything in the game, since the tapes feel like they date back to World War II. And Night 5 isn't much of a mystery either, as Dakota explains that Hammerhead is no ordinary animatronic and is very capable of going super aggressive.
The phone guy from the first game and the second game, so your manager from the other Krusty Krab, he is turned into Hammerhead, who's the original character in Chapter 3. So like his brain and consciousness is in the suit, but he's kind of like not all there, he's kind of been reprogrammed. So he's a lot more intelligent and dangerous than the other robots that are just kind of mindless killing machines.
And as for how you, the player, escaped, well, even Eli Floyd wasn't too sure.
After the incident in the power plant, I woke up 3 months later in Iceland. Apparently I made a break for it after you went psycho and got away. I still don't know how. I got picked up by a fisherman and his crew. I tried to tell my story, but, of course, no one believed me. How could they? I was stalked halfway across the ocean by Spongebob characters. What else am I supposed to say? I still think I'm insane just writing this, but I don't even think I could make this up if I desperately wanted to. I had myself admitted as soon as I got back to the States. The night terrors just wouldn't stop, and I needed all the help I could get. I could see its face. Your face. Whenever I closed my eyes or walked into a dark room. How screwed up is that? Well, it's no matter now, I hope. The doc's given me the go-ahead to be discharged. Thankfully, they've got a job lined up for me. I'm a nightguard. Jesus, why did I even say yes to that? Well, it should be fine. I'm just watching a mall in some backwater town in Oregon. Myriad Square Gardens, I think it's called. Hopefully no more mascots, no more robots, and no more fear.
And so, with that all being said and done, I'm nearly at the end of page 4 of this script, so I'm happy to leave it here. If there's anything important you don't think I've covered, let me know, as I'm confident that I've covered almost every confusing detail of the story. Do I think that I've answered everything perfectly? No, of course not. Some of the things in this story still can't possibly be explained, I feel like. But hey, these are just theories in the end of the day, and I'm open to being wrong about a few things as well. Especially given that most of the phone calls in the first game will soon no longer be canon, as Dakota is planning on making a remake of the first game to be released in a couple of months.
A lot of the game is done. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that I'd like to include though, and I think because I'm not on a deadline, like this is not a proper professional project where there's people kind of, you know, hurry up, get it out, it needs to make money. It doesn't need to make money, it doesn't kind of need to do anything except exist and be the best version of itself that it can be. So I think at the very latest I'd want to release it on June 9th again. Sorry, May 9th, not June. May 9th is kind of, yeah, May 9th is kind of a special day for the series because that's when Chumbucket came out. That's the date that I chose for Chapter 3 to come out.
And so will all my theories be thrown out of the window that day? Oh, let's hope not. I would like to get at least some things right, and who knows, if Dakota is watching this, then maybe I'm giving him some story ideas for the remaster. Before I go, I just want to say a big thank you for making it to the end of this video. Thank you so much. These theory videos, there's a reason why I don't make much of them. That's because it takes so long to A, script, B, edit. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Night 6 of the Chum Bucket. It clearly the most confusing and inconsistent part of the whole story, so I'm sure it can be interpreted in a lot of ways. Especially still confused on why the phone guy's audio sounds like this on other nights.
Hello? Hello? Oh, good. Nothing terrible's happening. I'm so glad you're safe. I found out where you are. It's a large metal building, quite a ways away. I'm coming there now, but there's a chance that
Yeah, anyone else's ears bleeding? Ugh. And then on Night 6, he sounds like he's using an actual phone.
Hello? Can you hear me? I can't get in. The doors out here, they're bolted tight. Just hold out. Just a little longer. I'll try and think of something.
Again, was this intended or is it just an inconsistency? I don't even know anymore. But lastly, I want to give a shout out to the ultimate of game theorists, Matt Pat from Game Theory. He just announced he will no longer be hosting the channel as of March, and he's been such incredible and a positive inspiration to both me and to the whole gaming world. And I'm so happy he was able to appear in the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. It was truly deserving. And in the words of Matt Pat, my friends, remember, that was just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. I've always wanted to do that.